Our second speaker is code 4196. The title of the speech, Mommy Issues.
I've been called mommy many times in my life. And hey, before you get any weird ideas, let me explain. This book, well, its title, Are You My Mother, has caused quite the controversy in my household. Because this question gets asked by these little guys, an occurrence that haunts my nightmares. But let's cut my little brothers some slack, because sometimes even I'm confused on how to answer their question. Parentification is defined by psychology today as a role reversal in families, in which the child acts like an adult within the familial system. Parentification seems to be a pretty taboo subject, as it isn't largely considered in conversations surrounding development or behaviors. Yet according to the National Alliance for Caregiving, nearly 1.4 million American children are experiencing parentification today. I've been controlling the chaos of toddlers for a while now, or at least I've been trying to. And my life has changed so much over the last few years. I and many others would like to be able to share our stories, stresses and all, and be met with understanding. So today, let's discover why parentification exists, then its effects on an individual's childhood, before finally, what that means for the parentified child when forming connections. Since the dawn of time, mankind has always wanted to find someone to take care of them. And hey, if you're still looking for that special someone, you know where to find me. But much like that urge, the concept of parentification has always existed. But it wasn't originally recognized as something psychological. According to the National Institute of Health, ethnic differences in rates of parentification stem from cultural values embraced by each group, as well as the ecological challenges that they may face. For example, within the Latino community, there's a concept called familismo, which centers around strong family loyalty. But familismo is so much more than just being close to your parents or siblings. It's about striving for individual success for the benefit of your relatives. Similarly, within Chinese culture, there's a concept called xiao, or filial piety. This is a Confucian concept that stresses the idea that it is the child's responsibility to support and succeed the parents. So within certain cultural contexts, parentification is a mere way of showing love and dedication towards your family members. And while cultural traditions are important in these conversations, financial pressures often push kids into parental roles out of sheer necessity. According to the National Database of Childcare Prices, childcare costs are astronomically high and unattainable for families throughout the country. When ranked, the top 4 regions with the highest annual cost of childcare are Minnesota at $16,000, California at almost $17,000, Massachusetts at nearly $21,000, and Washington, D.C. at over $24,000 spent annually. And to understand how ridiculous these numbers are, let's take a look at my home state of California, where infant care is said to eat up 62.7% of minimum wage incomes. Because childcare is becoming increasingly unattainable, parents are continuously pushed into a tough position, having to choose between staying in the workforce and being there to take care of their children. As a result, they are forced to delegate tasks within the household, oftentimes a large brunt of this responsibility falling on older children. And so the eldest child grows up and becomes the new caretaker of the home. And as someone who has taken that on, let me tell you, it can get pretty awkward. I mean, my little brothers refuse to believe that I'm, in fact, still a child. They claim it's because I do fun adult things like drink soda and tie my own shoes. But it goes so much deeper than that. Parentification disrupts childhood by placing adult responsibilities onto children. Newport Academy identifies 2 distinct types of parentification: instrumental and emotional. Instrumental parentification occurs when a child takes on practical tasks. This can be things like grocery shopping and cooking, taking care of other children or an infant in the home, or even serving as the family's translator in environments like the bank or the doctor's office. But for our sake, it's important to understand that instrumental parentification is not equivalent to helping with a favor or taking on an extra chore. Because these tasks are frequent and often age inappropriate, they leave the child with less time to engage in typical childhood activities that can aid their development. On the other hand, emotional parentification occurs when a child provides emotional support for a caretaker in a way that blurs the traditional child-parent dynamic. This is most commonly seen when a child listens to their parents' problems and provides them with advice. But in its extreme, can extend to a child acting as a moderator between their caretakers in times of conflict. And as you can imagine, the content of these conversations is often too overwhelming for the child to handle or too mature for them to even understand. And the effects of parentification go far beyond the household, with many people like myself struggling to balance all of these household responsibilities with something as vital as our education. Thankfully, institutions have begun to recognize the effects that these added responsibilities have on adolescents. For example, Rhode Island has become a pioneer in aiding their parentified students by creating legislation that identifies them. The state mandates collection data of child care responsibilities within high school populations and provides these students with targeted support for their unique circumstances. The Rhode Island Department of Education affirms that schools must recognize caretaking as a significant obstacle to traditional student success and recognize these responsibilities while providing concrete solutions. In Rhode Island, this looks like flexible attendance policies, easier access to tutoring, and more abundant counseling services for the unique emotional and academic needs of parentified children. And when they begin to look towards higher education, the Common Application, an undergraduate college admission system, is also taking steps towards aiding prospective students. The site now allows you to list taking care of family members as an activity on your portfolio that you can submit to colleges. This allows schools to have a better understanding as to how you spend your time, as well as more context towards the rest of your application, as they now know that you are balancing caretaking and schoolwork. But I'll admit, that balance wasn't exactly something that came easy to me when my brothers were born. Because I mean, hey, learning all of the names of the characters in Bluey takes time, so I'm surprised I even made it here today. And after building many Star Wars Lego sets, I began to realize that I've neglected to build some things of my own. Connections. According to an article from Psychology Today, formerly parentified children struggle with boundary setting and emotional regulation because they grew up constantly focused on meeting the physical and emotional needs of other people. So when they begin to meet people outside of their household, they adopt their caretaker mentality and apply it to future relationships. This can result in two common struggles. The first is a difficulty in distinguishing the difference between their needs and their partners. This is because when they are constantly focused on the feelings of another person, they begin to neglect their own and see themselves as less than. But this confusion can also be seen in reverse, with the parentified child struggling to place any emotional stock into a new person. This is because they grew up in an environment where emotional support was either inconsistent or fully non-existent. This innate fear of vulnerability can leave them feeling isolated and having difficulty in making meaningful connections. But hey, don't let that make you think that my life is all sad and gloomy, because it isn't. In fact, I have two little rays of sunshine following me around every day. My little brothers, Grayson and Jet, were born during COVID-19. And I'll admit, having two screaming babies in the house while going to school over Zoom, not exactly an ideal learning environment. But as psychologist Dr. Lisa Fontes explains, parentified children who focus on their siblings are more likely to form strong protective bonds that last a lifetime. So even though I have to deal with the tantrums, taking care of them has given my life a purpose. They became the reason that I wake up every morning and aspire to be the best version of myself. And I think that anyone who has a little one in their life will understand how they change perspective. So yes, I did and still do struggle with fitting into my complex role. But I and many others have found the motivation to not only persevere, but to cherish these moments. So that one day, my little boys will look up to me not as mom number 2, but as a loving and supportive big sister. So today, we discovered why parentification exists, then its effects on an individual's childhood, before finally, what that means for the parentified child when forming connections. Parentification inherently affects childhood development. But at the end of the day, whether it's a funny-shaped cloud, a new Bluey episode, or a bedtime story, my little boys challenge me to see joy in the little things. And after our time together today, for their sake and for mine, I hope we have finally answered the question, are you my mother?